Hey Amarillo, I'm Skylar Gallup, and you're listening to Hey Amarillo, the interview podcast featuring some of the most interesting people and stories of Amarillo, Texas. We record every week at Amarillo College's Innovation Outpost. The IO supports education, workforce development, and industry growth by inspiring and facilitating innovation in the Texas Panhandle. Today's guest is Heather Manderson. Heather is, among other things, an actor. This skill set of hers has taken her to some really cool places, beginning at a pretty young age, and continues to do so. Most recently with a show called The Blind, which revisits a pretty traumatic event in Amarillo's history. She takes us through her experience and what it's been like to walk parts of our community back through that painful time. Here's Heather. Heather Manderson, welcome to the Hey Amarillo podcast.
Thank you very much. I'm so happy to be here.
Happy to have you. We've got a lot of really cool stuff to talk about, but we will begin, as we do with all of our guests here on the Hey Amarillo podcast, and that's asking, what are you doing here? How'd you get here? What's your origin place with Amarillo, Texas?
Well, I moved to Amarillo in, I guess it was 2006, raised 2 children here. Was really involved with the Amarillo Little Theater after several years of being here. And, you know, that's sort of my story with Amarillo. I live in Lubbock now, but I still think if someone says, where are you from? It still feels like Amarillo.
Oh.
So, yeah, I mean, it sort of sucks you back in. This place. Yeah.
So where in East Texas?
I grew up in Athens, left home when I was quite young, and I did professional musical theater for a long time. Then I got a phone call from my mother, who was in medical school someplace called Lubbock, and she needed help. So she didn't do that till she was about 40, and I moved to someplace called Lubbock and went to work and helped her and my sister. I ended up graduating from Texas Tech and getting a real job, and got married, and I have 2 boys. So, yeah, we moved around a little after that and then ended up in Amarillo, and that's how I got here.
Nice. Okay, so let's go back. I'm a theater nerd, so
Okay, bring it.
Yep, I love this part of your story. How did you get into it? Did you stumble into a one-act play in high school? Was it in your blood? How'd you start?
It's crazy. This little tiny town, which is not so little tiny anymore, that I grew up in, Athens, it's actually one of the older community theaters in the country, not just in Texas. Cool. And like my great-grandfather built the stage and all that sort of cool stuff.
Nice.
Yeah. So I think the first thing, and we did it as a family, which was really cool. And again, it's a very small, back then I think it was like 11,000 people or something. And I think the first one I was like 6 or 7 or something. And I, played a damsel in distress and, whatever. I sort of grew up doing that. And then the county had an arts grant that came in, and they were doing a promotion for female playwrights, which for, small town East Texas in the early 70s was pretty progressive.
Very
actually,
cool.
Right?
Yes.
So this big city director guy came down and did full-on auditions for a Beth Henley play. And, I got encouraged to go audition. I did.
How old were you?
I was 13,
oh
12
my gosh,
or 13.
So exciting.
So exciting. Oh, yeah.
So exciting.
Absolutely. So fun.
You're hitting the big show.
100%. And so I got cast and with 2 other women, and it was a remarkable experience. And because of that show, the following summer, I got a phone call from that guy, that director guy, saying, would you want to come audition for my traveling company? And I mean, I think I was packing my suitcase before he even finished the sentence. So I did and was hired, and that's how I started doing the professional stuff. But I was very young.
What was that like?
It was wonderful. I was really lucky because, I don't know if my kids had come to me at 13 or 14 and said, hey, so here's what I'm doing. Leaving home, moving away, traveling around with strangers. This is before cell phones and all that stuff. So I would have probably said no. But, it was a different time. It was very supportive group of people. It was a fascinating, wonderful experience. But it was also really difficult, to be, even though I was really independent and doing what I wanted to do when I grew up, but I was doing it at 13, 14. Yeah. It was really hard. I mean, it was traveling constantly, staying in weird places and learning stuff on the fly. And it was, it was hard. So after several years, even at that age, I remember thinking, I don't know if I want to do this forever or not.
Were you like going to school while you were traveling?
Sort of. Okay. I mean, I think, thankfully the parameters around that dramatically changed. And this was sort of, this wasn't like big time. So a lot of the equity requirements and things, they were pretty lax back then. So no, for lack of a better word, but the education I got doing what I was doing was pretty valuable.
Yeah, I guess in that sense, the definition of the word education varies greatly, right?
Very much so, very much so. So I ended up, I was just about to start another season when I got the phone call from my mom. So it was sort of one of those, well, this is a way for me to do something else in my life.
Time to go. Cool.
So it was, I wouldn't trade that experience for anything in the world. It was wonderful. So once I got to Lubbock and, just went to work so I could take care of Mom and my sister. And then I got to a point where I could finish college at Tech and did that. And I got a degree that has nothing to do with theater.
Smart girl.
Well, and then got
from a person who started as a theater
right,
major.
Exactly. It happens. So then I got, a real job and did that and all that good stuff. So that's kind of how it started. And then I had lived in Amarillo for over a year and was at a stoplight one evening on my way to the grocery store. And there was like a marquee thing with the date and time on it at the bank or something. Okay. And the day before, I had seen in the newspaper that they were having auditions for a show that I knew very well.
What show?
Beehive.
Okay.
I knew the drag version, but they were doing the not drag version. So I remember seeing the sign on, the time on the marquee and thinking, I think tonight is the night of those auditions. And I'm pretty sure the theater's like right over here somewhere. I'd never been. So I turned my blinker on and drove to the theater and thought, well, I'm just going to go watch. And I walked in the door and they hand you a card and it's unbelievably professional. Mm-hmm. So I was like, oh, wait, I know what's happening here. And I did not go there to audition. I went to watch and I ended up auditioning kind of on the fly and was cast. And that was the first show I did at ALT. And
what year was that?
08 maybe? I'd have to look it up, I think. Yeah, but it was just a couple of years, I think, after we moved here. But
how fun.
7 or 8, I can't remember. But yeah, that's kind of when it started. And then it was, every season as much as I could do, as much as
how many
my life
shows,
would permit.
If you, just off the cuff, how many shows have you done with ALT?
Oh, I don't know, 10, 15 maybe, something like that. Lots over the course. I mean, I did several a season if I could. It wasn't always conducive with being a grown-up and doing grown-up stuff. Yeah.
Wah, wah.
Yeah, but it was, it was really, it's just such an amazing place. And
I was
going to
say that for listeners that don't know, that we have, a community theater organization, but B, that it's like really remarkable.
It is absolutely, and this is not an exaggeration. Several of the shows, well, really all of them that I can think of, and the facilities and the caliber of things that they do pale in comparison to a lot of the professional theaters that I had, the good fortune to work in. Yeah. It still blows my mind to this day. I mean, and Jason's done amazing things with it since he's taken over. So, yeah, I'm really proud to say that I've been a part of it.
So probably a happy surprise. And I want to step back. We've got a good amount of stuff to talk about regarding theater and some really exciting stuff in Amarillo and much farther. But I would imagine that stumbling into ALT was maybe an unexpected surprise in Amarillo. And for a girl from East Texas who kind of ran around and had this really cool experience in traveling theater, I've lived in both East Texas, Lubbock area and up here. What did you find when you came to this area of this state? What did you like? What was surprising? What was kind of those first couple of surprises, misconceptions, letdowns, perhaps? Yeah.
With Amarillo or with the
area? I mean, from Lubbock, coming from East Texas,
right.
And Lubbock and Amarillo certainly have their differences, but.
Sure. Well, having gone to college in Lubbock, and my first son was born there, and all that, so I had my experience there. Lived several places, and then ended up in Amarillo. It's still remarkable to me how different those two cities are, Lubbock and Amarillo. And Amarillo wins. Sorry, Lubbock, but I mean, in so many ways. I had heard about the Amarillo Theater for years. So I kind of knew that it was here, but I had no idea how amazing it was. Just moving into this community with two small children and, being a mom and doing all those sorts of things, it was lovely. I mean, it was just this very refreshing, welcoming community. So, yeah, that was my experience when I first came to Amarillo, for sure.
I'm curious, were you off-put by the open spaces coming out of East Texas?
That's an interesting question, because I couldn't anymore move back to East Texas or someplace. Even going to Dallas, sometimes I get claustrophobic almost. It's the weirdest sensation. And I know it's not just me, because I've said that, and people who have moved away and come back said, I can't stand it. I don't know.
No, I totally get it, Heather. That's exactly why I asked the question. Because when I moved to East Texas, back when I was a journalist, I felt claustrophobic.
Absolutely. I mean, just the big open skies. And also, I mean, I know there's lots of, jokes about Amarillo weather and all the things. It's one of my favorite things about this city. I love it because, it can get cold. It does. And the wind blows. Sure, it does. But it also doesn't all the time. And there's lots of times in between when it's beautiful and lovely and perfect. And, a snowy day here and there is kind of a welcome thing sometimes. You don't really get those in deep East Texas very often.
That's right. And it's also worth noting, it is very hot in East Texas right now. It's a warm day here, but...
No, not by East Texas comparison, for sure. But, so I actually really enjoyed it. And then once it sort of gets under your skin, it's very hard to, I love the forest and the mountains and all the things, but as long as I can have some big open sky time.
I totally get that. I get it. Noted.
For sure.
Okay, so now you're part of this, what I know is a beautiful family at ALT, and you're raising your kiddos, and they're out of the nest now.
They are. Yeah, they are. 22 and 25.
Yeah. And you're part of this really cool project now.
Yes.
Like really, really cool project.
Really, really cool project.
So introduce us to The Blind. Let's start with what I think some of our listeners will be familiar with at some level of familiarity. And that's what kind of the topic is. It was this occurrence that caused kind of a very deep trench, I think, in Amarillo back in the 90s.
Correct. I have to say, I didn't know about this tragedy when I lived in Amarillo. It happened in 1997. There was a kid called Brian Deneke from Amarillo who was part of the punk music scene back in 97. He was very instrumental in doing lots of things at a very young age, getting bands through Amarillo and facilitating concerts and all sorts of really kind of wonderful things at a very young age. And
punk was just coming.
Punk was just coming. I mean, it was other places, but, as is normal for most smaller towns, it, takes a little longer. And I don't know that the perception of it, I don't know, I wasn't here, so I don't know. But clearly the perception was sort of more of a grungy outcast, not as welcome as it is in maybe other parts of the world, right? So Brian was killed by a high school Amarillo student in a parking lot. He was a Tascosa football player. That case ended up going to trial. He was given probation and a fine, but found not guilty. And it really did. I mean, the more I have learned about it since being a part of this project, I mean, it created a pretty significant rift in the Amarillo community, as well it should. Honestly, and really probably should have been even more of a rift than it was, really. But people took sides, as people do, right? And it divided this community, I think, in lots of ways. Brian's family still lives in Amarillo. His parents are still here. They're lovely, lovely people, Mike and Betty Deneke. And his older brother, who I've also had the pleasure of meeting, and he's a remarkable human being. I mean, he has taken that sort of, from what I know now about the punk music scene and that sort of community, he has taken that sort of angst and turned all of that into this way that he just spills kindness out onto anyone who needs it, regardless of their anything. Yeah. And that is what I have come to sort of learn more about, that community and that music scene and humanity too. I mean, outside of this story and it's being told. So the project is about that horrible thing that happened. A friend of mine, she's local, her name is Jenny Stennis. She's brilliant. She has written this piece. It's called The Blind. And the premise of the piece, right now it's in a shorter festival version, so it's about 45 minutes now.
But like a stage performance.
A stage performance.
It's a play.
Exactly.
That's
it's
right.
a two-person, there's only two people. You never leave the stage. It's more like just one solid scene. The story that she's written is, she is one of the characters, and I actually play her. And then the other character is Jason, the older brother of the kid that was killed. So the two characters are Jenny and Jason. Jenny wants to write a play about what happened and to try to show how something like this could have happened. How could we keep this from happening? Just to sort of start to have a dialogue about this, right?
Yeah.
So she's going to Jason to ask basically permission to do so. And they are coming at this from very opposite sides. They also grew up together. They went to elementary.
The real life Jenny.
The real life Jenny and the real life Jason.
School with the older brother. That's
they
right.
went to Belmar and Crockett and Amarillo High. I mean, so they grew up together, but on, very different sides of fences, right? In Amarillo back in that time, for sure. So the play, it's not at all what you think. It wasn't when I read it. When Jenny was describing it to me and asking me if I'd be interested, and I sort of had a preconceived notion of what I thought it would be, which was still intriguing to me.
Sure.
But then when I got to actually read the script, I was floored and shaking, and read it like 3 times in a row because it was just so good and it was so unexpected. And every time I read it, I read something in a different way and felt something in a different way, which is sort of the point of theater and art and anything that moves you to a different place, right? But this was that sort of personified in this, in these pages. And so I was thrilled and honored to be a part of it.
Yeah, what's been really cool about The Blind, I think other than a little bit of a closed table read, it hasn't been on ALT's stage, but a lot of places very far from Amarillo have taken note. So talk to me about that and why this has captured the attention of a lot of different folks.
Of course. We did 2 shows actually at Amarillo Theater. We did a private show and then we did a public show.
Oh, okay.
It was very early on.
Okay, cool.
We also took it to the Fort Worth Festival, a big festival in Fort Worth, and did several shows there. That was amazing. We got great feedback and it was an incredible experience. We also had a show in Lubbock, which was incredibly well attended, and we had a wonderful talk back after. And then in a few weeks, we're going to London to the Camden Fringe Festival, which is a big, wonderful honor to get to be a part of that. So we'll be performing it there. We have 6 performances currently. And it's very interesting because this story, if you tell this story to particularly a punk musician or anyone who knows anything about the punk music scene in London, they know this story. They know Brian's name. And it's, he became sort of like a martyr for that cause. He's mentioned in several songs by various bands, and his, the art that he was instrumental in creating here in Amarillo, and then subsequent things that people have done after he passed away. And it's such an incredible honor to get to tell this story there. And one of the cool things that we have done every time we've done this is we do this 45-minute play, and then we have a Q&A talkback immediately following, and it's usually facilitated by a moderator or something. And it starts out, people will sometimes say things like, well, how does it feel to play, someone who's, just normal, like questions. And then someone will have a comment about, well, I was there that night, or I was a member of the punk scene, or I went to Amarillo High when that happened, or I grew up here and my parents used to tell me about that. And that's fascinating, because you start to hear things that they heard watching the play that even as an actor, it just, leaves you speechless to hear other people's perceptions of what you just did and what you just presented. But then you also get, members of the religious community who have come to see the play, who have sometimes a very different take on things and how they heard some of the material. And so it becomes this dialogue. And the more diverse the audience, the more incredible the dialogue.
Always.
Right? And so that, I know that was Jenny's sort of premise from the beginning, was to start this dialogue and try to sort of glean out the pieces that are the humanity, right? And so it's been a really remarkable thing to be a part of it. And I'm so looking forward to London and hoping that it will be perceived the way that we anticipate it will.
Yeah, no pressure, right?
None. No to zero. No, it's fine. It's totally fine.
Carry the story
it's absolutely fine.
Not only a young man and a tragic death, the story of a family in the aftermath, the story of a community kind of put against itself.
Exactly.
And then to hear, I had no idea that Brian, I was familiar, of course, with what happened, but I also didn't live here at the time. To hear that, he is like a martyr or a symbol, his story holds weight in a community. And the story of this thing that happened in Amarillo, 40 years ago, 30 years ago, resonates, as far as London and in pockets of societies that are so far from Amarillo is really incredible to think about.
Right. One of the things that Brian and Jason's father has said to us, because I think they've attended almost every show we've done, which has been just lovely, is, thank you for telling this story. Unfortunately, this is a story that still needs to be told, because that sort of rift happens in many different ways for many different people in lots of different situations. And this is sadly more of a timely story now than maybe ever, because everybody feels so divided, right? And I do think this was, part of Jenny's focus going into it. To sort of recognize that complacency is a dangerous thing, and particularly your own. That's sort of the first step in deciding, okay, here's a problem that I want to address. How do I do that? First is recognizing the danger in feeling that sort of self-complacent. And then acknowledging that you are likely to have to value and listen to the voices of people whose opinions you may not share, because that's part of the process, right? And then finding a way to establish a dialogue and some open communications between groups of people that might not readily have that available to them.
That's right.
So I've never heard Jenny say it exactly that way, but that to me is where this play came from and what it's trying to do. And to hear people's responses. Last night we had a rehearsal, and we were lucky enough to have a member of the Amarillo Police Department and his wife come to the rehearsal. And he was actually on duty that night when it happened, which I didn't realize.
Oh my gosh!
Until after. And he said after he was a little anxious about coming and didn't know what to expect. And,
Sure.
Plays weren't really his thing, and he wasn't really sure because the perceptions, can be all over the place,
Yeah, it got wilder
particularly
for a little
from
bit. Yeah.
law enforcement,
Yeah.
all that stuff. It was I'll never forget that conversation last night. It was just to hear his perspective and how he felt, and how some of the members that are still in the police department who were there that night or who experienced that, what sort of communication, what sort of dialogue would be helpful from their point of view to facilitate, to keep things like this from happening, and to try to establish those dialogues and shake yourself out of that complacency.
Yeah.
So it's been remarkable every time. There's not ever been a time that we've done any of it that I've thought, this is okay. I mean, it's just all been a really wonderful experience that I know I really had no idea that this is how this was going to feel, and this was how this was going to go. It's been life-changing for me.
What has it done to your perspective of our community? Because you've listened, I'm kind of talking more about the roundtables or the after show conversations. What have you been surprised by? What has challenged your own perceptions? What has been like your big takeaways from listening? Because really what you've had is like a main line into trauma in our community that occurred 30 years ago.
Absolutely.
So what has that had you kind of reflecting on?
Oh, so many things. Probably the common denominator, though, is how many times people who have seen the show and who have either reached out to us afterwards or came to the talk back and spoke up. So many people say, this was not what I expected. Mm-hmm. And I found myself identifying with one of you and thinking, okay, I believe that. Yes, that's how I feel. But by the end, I was questioning my own thoughts about that. Mm-hmm. And my dad has this saying, which is so much more meaningful to me now. He says, you don't always have to believe what you think. And I think that is the thing that I have come to see, is we all have these sort of intrinsic paradigms, right, mm-hmm. that come from our worlds, right, and how we are and where we've been and all those things. And whether you know it or not, the things that you say and the actions that you take or don't take, they're rooted in that. Mm-hmm. And so you may not think that is how you are, but you are, and so I think his point is you can question those paradigms just because that's the way you grew up, or that's the way you thought because church told you to, or your mama told you to, or your coach told you to.
Had an experience one time. All of the things that mold us. Absolutely.
Right. I mean, you think that because someone told you think that, mm-hmm. but you don't have to believe that forever. You can question that. You can question your own paradigms. And I've seen that happen with people sitting in front of me. I've had people reach out to me and say, I saw this 6 months ago. I'm still thinking about it. Like, I made this decision instead of that decision because I remembered, this section of the play where he said this or you said that. Or so, that's a really powerful thing to be a part of. It is. So now when my dad says that all the time, I'm like, yeah, I understand that on a much deeper level than I ever did.
That's a good one. You don't have to believe what you think. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll sit with that one as well.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you do have to, but once you sort of wrap your brain around, okay, I mean, just because this is my norm doesn't mean it has to be my only norm. I mean, that norm can change, that norm can morph. My brain can open, my heart can open. I can see things for what they are through different lenses, So I don't know. I think that's a lesson that we all need to hear, inside and outside of the story.
Does your marketing feel like a shot in the dark? Are your social media posts getting lost in the scroll? Unlock your business's potential with SKP Creative. They know your audience and design posts that reflect your brand and drive real engagement. From scroll-stopping social media content to powerful traditional marketing, graphic design, and website development, SKP Creative covers it all. Are you ready to elevate your feed and turn your marketing into a success story? Visit skpcreative.com today. All right, we're back with Heather Manderson. Heather, now it's time for 8 Straight.
Okay, bring it.
Yep, it's the part of the show where we ask the same, or kind of most of the time the same questions. I'm still playing with the questions. I like this set, though.
Yeah.
You can answer them in as much or as little detail as you'd like.
All right.
Okay, first off, when you think of Amarillo 10 years from now, what do you hope for?
I hope for a greater political diversity. I hope for the same dollars and efforts that are spent in some community areas to be focused on all of them. I mean, some like the north side of town and the side of town, the Plemons that I lived in, and I hope that they continue the amount of urban development that they've done. So that's what I would hope.
Very good. Other than wind, what do you think this area has too much of?
Potholes and convenience stores. That's what I remember.
And very pragmatic answer.
Every time I'm back, I'm like, dadgummit. So, yeah.
Conversely, what does the area not have enough of?
I would go back to kind of what I hope that it would develop over in the next 10 years. More conversations about developing areas of town that aren't the ones that, people tend to flock to, like the downtown area and the Clemens Eagle area and some of in the north side of town. And I think that there needs to be more development and focus on those.
You spread the love a little.
Spread the love.
There you go.
Exactly.
Always, right?
With schools and everything.
When was the last time you went to Paladora Canyon, Heather?
I went it was about 2 years ago.
Okay.
But I'm headed there when we finish here.
Oh,
so,
perfect.
yeah, I'm heading out there this afternoon. So
Perfect. I think all the trails are open except for one I checked.
Yeah, we're rehearsing tonight out there. So,
fun.
I know, fun.
Not bad digs.
Yeah, it's beautiful out there. I love it. And every time I go, I always think, why don't I come here more often?
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
That's
What's your favorite local restaurant?
575. It's a required, even if I'm passing through, I have to stop.
What's your pizza order?
The green striped piggy.
Yeah.
I had one yesterday that was a little diversion for me, but it was also good. Don't remember the name of it. I don't have one named after me yet, which I'm a little bitter about. No, I just Lubbock doesn't have anything even remotely close.
It's wonderful.
It's my favorite.
I will challenge your green striped piggy to add drizzled honey and slivered almonds.
Okay, I always drizzle the honey, but then I use the green vinegar sauce combo with the honey.
Okay, the green vinegar sauce.
I'm going to raise you that.
I will.
Okay.
Received.
Okay, perfect.
How do you describe Amarillo to people outside of the area?
Not what you'd expect. I mean, the weather is not what you've been told. I mean, it can be, but there's no traffic or very little. We don't have rush hour. We have rush 5 minutes.
That's right.
Right. Here's the thing that I remember noticing really very early on living here. I don't think I've ever lived in a place that has the kind of support for local businesses that Amarillo has. And I mean, even being in Lubbock now, like it's chain after chain after chain. And there are some, but I recognize being here, like the amount of community effort and commitment that is put forth for community-based businesses. And I think that's really admirable.
That's strong.
It's really strong.
And not inherently present. I agree. It's not just a given that a city would really pour into its locally created. You think about the Palaces and the Pondesettas and these really great, successful.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's something that I remember standing out to me and still does.
What is the most underrated aspect of living here?
Your appreciation for big open skies. I mean, that's going to just get ready. If you move here, it's going to happen. And it's going to be really hard for you to go live in a forest after living here because it's just, you won't ever be able to do that. Also, there's so much access here to arts and appreciation for them. I hope that continues to, I would put that in my 10-year plan also, for that to just continue on the path that it's on. Having lived other places, I'm still in awe of how much the arts are appreciated here,
Mm-hmm.
how much people support the universities that are here, how much community involvement comes from those universities. Also, just geographically, the access to other places.
Yeah.
It's so much easier to get places from here than it is even from Lubbock 100 miles away.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And I think it's really important to call out that you've said that there is continued support for the arts, because I do totally think there's like a really cool, very valuable momentum behind even, not creating new really cool art organizations or projects, but really like digging into supporting and loving on some long time, like very, very historical, the Little Theater,
right.
The opera,
Right.
symphony, all of that. People are like, it feels like people are really wrapping their arms. And I don't mean like in this moment, I mean like for a while now.
Right.
And pouring into those institutions.
100%. And I would also argue that right now, I think people are looking for places to feel connected. Sadly, more so than ever before, I think, for me personally. But, places like Amarillo Little Theater and that community and how encompassing and welcoming it is, even if you're not a theater person.
Yeah.
I mean, if someone moved to Amarillo and needed a hobby, I mean, if you can pick up a paintbrush or, drive a screw in with a power drill, there's lots of stuff to do. And you will have this instant supportive community. And that's not that way everywhere. And I think that's true of a lot of things in Amarillo. I don't think it's just inclusive to the arts, but ALT is kind of the shining star for
Doing
me
a
for
good
that.
job at it.
100%.
Lovely. Finally, what is your favorite building in Amarillo?
So I have a thing about favorites.
Okay.
For me, favorites, it kind of depends on what I'm getting out of that favorite.
Okay.
Like if I'm feeling like I just need green space, Pete's Greenhouse, that was one of my happy places.
Yes.
Love to go there.
I agree.
Any of the old downtown buildings, like this, all the old wonderful, the old Polk Library building and all just the wonderful old architecture. And it's just so regal and beautiful. I love every old building in Amarillo.
Yeah, they are lovely.
Those are my favorites. But just any place that brings you joy, I think, goes in the favorite column for me. And so it depends on, there's certain people's houses that are my favorite buildings. And, that just, I can go there and I just feel like, it's just like a warm hug from a building, from a house. So
very nice.
Yeah.
Okay, Heather, finally, I like to ask my guests to endorse something. So this can be an organization, a thing to do, a piece of information to learn more about our community. But if there's a listener out there that doesn't know about blank, they should check it out.
So for me, that would be two-pronged. I would say Amarillo Theater. I can't deviate from that platform because I'm standing on it pretty solidly. Check that out if you haven't. Even people who don't think they like theater, there's so much going on, and you'll surprise yourself if you just let yourself go. Places like Wildcat Bluff, there are so many cool, just outside of Amarillo, places where you can go put your hands in the dirt and get some sun on your shoulders and see the big skies. And so those would be probably my top two.
Heather, thank you so much for
joining
us.
Thank you, Skylar. Enjoyed every minute.
It's been lovely. This episode is sponsored by the Amarillo Art Institute at Arts in the Sunset. If you haven't been, this place is an amazing center for Amarillo's vibrant art scene. They have monthly events, including their First Friday Art Walk, which showcases the artists they have in residence, and they are some incredibly talented people with all sorts of wares and mediums. They also offer classes for children and adults in things like glass blowing, weaving, and pottery. It's all super cool. Check them out on Facebook. That's Arts in the Sunset. That concludes this episode. Thanks to Heather for the interview. For more information about Amarillo Little Theater, visit amarillolittletheater.org. Thanks to SKP Creative and the Amarillo Art Institute for supporting this episode, and to Angelina Marie for editing every week. Executive producers on this episode are Jim and Barbara Witten. If you're interested in supporting the podcast, visit heyamarillo.com. Thanks for listening. This has been episode 408 of Hey Amarillo. My name's Skylar Gallup, and we hope you come back next week.